Alright, I'm back. It is 7 in it's 7 at night. I don't know why I lost the words there. But it's time to get the last drop in 4 side, which is from the Mad Taxi, which has a 1 in 128 chance of dropping the Exterminator spray. And fun fact, the Exterminator spray is actually the only. What am I saying, dude? Getting the Exterminator spray from the Mad Taxi is actually the only way you can obtain Exterminator spray. You literally have to rely on luck if you want this item. And the Exterminator spray is pretty good too. It does around 200 damage to bug enemies. And it's an infinite use item, so it never goes away. So yeah, the Exterminator spray is pretty useful. But we have to go ahead and grind for it. Now it's a good thing it is the last drop in 4 side, so after this we have to progress some story a little bit. And just like with the crate sign, the Mad Taxis usually spawn somewhere in northern 4 side, like right around here. And it shouldn't really take too long to find one. Oh, there's 2 right there. Okay, but we only need 1. Alright. We have to save state, and he's singled out too. Now, it is going to take a while because it is a 1 in 128 chance. So we might as well start grinding. Now, I actually prefer fighting the Mad Taxi than the Crazed Sign. And that's because, the Mad Taxi isn't a freaking tank. And what I mean by tank is taking a lot of hits. It takes so many hits to take down the Crazed Sign. Like, tell me how a taxi is weaker than a freaking traffic sign. Tell me how that works. But other than that, the Mad Taxi really isn't that bad to fight. They can accelerate towards you to deal some damage. And on top of that, they can spray some fumes, which makes you start uncontrollably crying. Dude, why do I keep mixing up words? And when you uncontrollably cry in this game, you miss most of your physical attacks. So yeah, have fun with that. But yeah, I obviously don't expect to get this drop pretty fast because it's a 1 in 128 chance. And 1 in 128 is the rarest odds an enemy can have in this game. Wow. So Paula missed because she's blinded, and Jeff missed because the Mad Taxi dodged his attack. But yeah, after we get the Mad Taxi's drop, we have to progress this story so that we can move on to the next location. And surprise, surprise, the next location has more drops for us to get. Just expect that at this point. If we move on to a new location, there's most likely drops to get. You know, even though this challenge takes a long time to complete and actually do, you know, it's kind of crazy that the developers put this much effort into the enemies drops. Like, seriously. Most enemies in this game drop an item sometimes. Like, they really put a lot of effort into these enemy drops. Then again, they don't actually expect you to go out of your way and get all of them. Oh, he just killed Jeff. Oh my god, this Matt Taxi's a monkey. Oh, Paula just leveled up. Oh my god. Oh, I know why she leveled up. It's because Jeff is dead. So when we killed the Mad Taxi, it didn't divide the XP across Ness, Paula, and Jeff. It only divided it across Ness and Paula, because Jeff is dead. Oh yeah, funny thing about the Mad Taxi, when I was doing a practice round of this challenge, before starting this redemption, I somehow managed to get the Mad Taxi's drop on the first try. I don't know. I don't know. It just happened. Because I don't control the luck in this game. Like I could get the exterminator spray literally right now or in the next 25 minutes. You never know. Why did I go to the left? Oh, you monkey. You monkey. You monkeys. You monkey. Oh, he just did so much damage to Paula. She's probably gonna die now. Oh, never mind. Paula got a smash hit. Paula got a smash hit. But yeah, it's also funny that when I first did this challenge, the 1 in 128 drops were the main reason it took me 38 days to complete the challenge the first time. Because the 1 in 128 drops were literal heck to get, I swear. You know, it started off light. You know, the first 1 in 128 drop of the game is from the skate punk. And, you know, I did my thing. I was grinding the game literally the whole day. And I eventually ended up getting the skate punks drop. Oh my god, just hit him. How does literally everyone missed? But yeah. Then I moved on to the attack slug, which is also a 1 in 128 chance of them dropping their item. But then by the time I got to like chapter 7, like basically almost all of the drops in locations were 1 in 128. Like right now we're in chapter 4 and in some locations there's only like one in 128 drop to get in a location. But then we're gonna go to Moonside later in chapter 4, which has 2 1 in 128 drops to get. And then it just gets worse. Because in some locations there's 3 1 in 128 drops to get. And also, there were some drops that, there were some 1 in 128 drops I was pretty confident and comfortable with getting. But then there were others where I was just like, okay, I'm totally going to suffer trying to get this. And an example of a 1 in 128 drop I was comfortable with getting was the Starman Super in chapter 7, which has a 1 in 128 chance of dropping the Sword of Kings. It's probably the most well-known drop in the entire challenge because the EarthBound Player's Guide encourages you to actually grind for the Sword of Kings, even though it's optional. And the Sword of Kings is Pooh's ultimate weapon and the only weapon he can equip. And when you have the Sword of Kings, Pooh never misses an attack, like ever. He literally never misses with it. And I actually didn't find out about that until a few playthroughs ago. But yeah. And the reason why I was comfortable with getting the Sword of Kings is because I've actually grinded for it before. Like way before I even had the idea of doing this challenge. You know, I remember the first time I got the Sword of Kings in this game. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning. I should have been asleep. and I was just endlessly grinding the Starman Supers. And then when I did end up getting it, you know, it was the end of the battle. Went through the XP screen, and then right after I pushed A, I saw the magical words, "The enemy left a present," and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be another brain food lunch," in which the brain food lunch is a 1 in 120 chance from a Starman. And I've gotten a few of those while I was grinding for the Sword of Kings, and it was pretty disappointing. But yeah, I thought it was going to be another brain food lunch. So then I pressed A again, and then it said, inside the present, there was, and I was like, brain food lunch. But then I saw the words, a Sword of Kings. And I was like, oh my god. But yeah, it was a classic moment. Yeah, the Sword of Kings is pretty good for Pooh. Like, yeah, it is optional. And you don't need it to beat the game. Because without the Sword of Kings, Pooh basically does just as much damage. But is it great to have the Sword of Kings? Yeah, definitely. It really is great to have it. But yeah, there's just that thing. Like you don't need it to beat the game. But I kind of do need the Sword of Kings because, you know, I'm in the middle of a challenge here. You know, I have to get all of the enemy drops, literally all of them. Otherwise, I would fail the challenge if I miss even one. And then an example of an 1 in 120 drop I wasn't comfortable with getting was the Manly Fish's Brothers drop, which is an item called the Horn of Life. And the reason why I wasn't comfortable with getting the Manly Fish's Brothers drop is before I even started the challenge, I went into it thinking, man, I'm going to actually suffer trying to get this drop. And I did suffer. I did suffer. It took me 108 encounters to get their drop. But yeah, the reason why I was not comfortable getting it was because I heard by many people who did the 1 in 128 challenge, which is a challenge similar to this, except you only get the 1 in 128 items. I've heard from people that the Manly Fish's brother is the hardest drop to get in the entire, game. Yeah, that's what I heard. People said the Manly Fish's brother is the hardest drop to get. I mean, come on. The walkthrough for the 1 in 128 challenge even says that it's the hardest drop to get in the whole game. Like, literally in the walkthrough, it says, and I quote, "This is, without a doubt, the toughest foe to garner an item from." Like, dude, if the walkthrough says it's the most difficult drop to get, then obviously I'm going to be scared to try and get it myself. And now that I've done this challenge a few times, I can safely say the Manly Fish's Brothers drop is not the hardest drop to get. Okay, maybe it's because Like, maybe it's because the people who attempted the challenge didn't know how the drops actually worked, so they didn't think to single him out. And that's the thing with the manly fish's brother. You usually fight them along with a manly fish. And plus, the manly fish's brother is an already rare enemy. So just imagine trying to walk around the overworld for like 10 minutes just to find one manly fish's brother, fight it, and then not get the drop. Yeah, that's why people think it's the hardest drop to get. It's because of how rare it is, and because how it usually fights alongside a manly fish. But what I did was that I just singled out a manly fish's brother, and then I put it in a save state. And then after 108 encounters, I ended up getting the manly fish's brother's drop. Now, in my opinion, the real hardest drop to get in the game is an item called the Star Pendant, which is dropped by an enemy called a Major Psychic Psycho, which you find in Chapter 8. And they are similar to the manly fish's brother, except this time with the Major Psychic Psycho, you can't single them out. Like, I'm being serious. You cannot single out a Major Psychic Psycho. And the reason why you can't single them out is because the location you find them in is like pretty much all of it is narrow. So there's no spaces to like despawn enemies. So yeah, the Major Psychic Psycho will always be grouped up with someone. And because of that, I decided to use an exploit to try and get the drop. Hey, I never said I couldn't use exploits. I never said I couldn't use exploits. So I did it. And for this challenge, the Major Psychic Psycho is the only enemy I can use an exploit on. For every other enemy, I can't use exploits. Okay, if I'm being honest, the only reason I'm not allowing exploits aside from the Major Psychic Psycho is because there are some exploits to get some other 1 in 120 items, like the Goddess Ribbon from the Ghost of Starman. But the only reason that I only allowed the Major Psychic Psycho is because some of those exploits are actually super difficult to pull off. Like, I remember when I had to do the Ghost of Starman's exploit, and it was incredibly difficult to pull off. Like, the NPCs had to be put inside. What am I saying? The NPCs had to be at specific spots in order for the exploit to work. If the NPC wasn't at a specific spot, that's it. You failed the exploit. All because of something you can't control. But yeah, after like 30 minutes of trying to do the exploit, I eventually ended up pulling it off. And that's also why I'm not allowing Jeff's spy command, besides from the Major Psychic Psycho. Because you need to use Jeff's spy command in order to pull off the Major Psychic Psycho's exploit. Yeah, that's why I don't allow the spy command besides the Major Psychic Psycho. Like, it just feels like cheating. Because, like, if you ask me, it's pretty OP that Jeff can spy on an enemy and then literally see if the enemy has the drop or not. Like, I could literally use Jeff's spy command right now to see if the Mad Taxi actually has the exterminator spray. I could literally use the spy command right now. But the spy command doesn't actually always work. Like, an enemy can still drop their item while Jeff's spy command fails. But yeah, the spy command feels like cheating to me, because I want to create a sense of suspense when getting a drop. But yeah, that's the only enemy that I allow exploits on, because I'm just that uncomfortable with trying to get their drop. Okay, we are 27 minutes into the recording, and so far it has taken just as long as it did to get the crate signs drop. You know, I have a feeling that it's gonna take just as long to get the Mad Taxis drop as it did with the crazy sign. And so far, the exterminator spray is actually going to be the first enemy drop that I'm actually going to keep instead of just disposing of it. Because, you know, the exterminator spray is pretty useful for this point of the game. Because guess what? In the next location, there's some bug enemies. So the exterminator spray will be really useful for taking those bug enemies down. But yeah, the exterminator spray is pretty worth it to try and get. But just like what I said with the Sword of Kings earlier, you don't need the exterminator spray to beat the game. Like, will it be tougher without the exterminator spray? Yeah, it will be tougher, but not really. But you don't need it to beat the game. Like, literally, you don't need any of the enemy drops to beat the game. Because most of the enemy drops are just items that you can already buy in the stores. But I'm not even joking about that. I made a whole video about it and everything. Most of the items that enemies drop can be bought in stores. And then the items you can't buy in stores, they're either just common presents found in the overworld, or it's the ultimate, or it's like ultimate equipment. Such as the exterminator spray right here. Which, let me remind you again, you don't need them to beat the game. Oh! Oh, yes. There it is. The exterminator spray. We got it. Oh, that's the last drop in 4 side. Let's go. Another location down. Alright, I'm giving this exterminator spray to Paula. So now that we have all the drops in 4 side, we have some story to progress. So that we can move on to the next location, where we have to get more drops. Because I'm totally excited for that. So we have to go to the Topola Theater here. And we have to visit the Runaway 5 again. Because for some reason they're in debt again. So yeah, we get to listen to another banger from the Runaway 5. Alright, I'm gonna put the controller down so that we can listen to the banger. Alright, you listen to the banger. So now, after you listen to the banger, you gotta exit the theater. And then you gotta go into this room here to talk to the person they're in debt with. And she tells us that if we want to pay off their debt again, she tells us that we have to find buried gold. So yeah, she's literally taunting us to find buried gold. And if you guys remember, there just so happens to be a gold mine in the Dusty Dunes Desert, which is west of Fourside. So yeah, talking to that NPC unlocks the gold mine. Oh, there's a mad taxi. Bro, look at him. He's trying to chase me. I thought he was driving away from me. And which is honestly funny that you can become strong enough to the point where literal cars are scared of you. Like, dude, I'm telling you, the protagonists are literal gods. Like, dude, no average teenager is this strong. Like, dude, keep in mind, the protagonists are estimated to be around 12 to 14 years old. I'm pretty sure Paula is the youngest, while Ness is the oldest. What are you doing here? Yo, it's a Skelpian. I already got your drop. No! Let me through. I'm just trying to save the game, man. So yeah, here's the gold mine. But we'll have to do the gold mine later. Because right now we have to save the game. And in the gold mine, the exterminator spray will be really helpful. Because there's enemies called gigantic ants. And they take a lot of hits to go down. So the exterminator spray will be really useful for killing them. Alright, that is it for this recording. And in the next recording, we're gonna have to go through the gold mine, in which we have to do a lot before we start grinding for the enemies.